Thank you everyone for coming to what seems to be an absolutely fascinating panel because of the fascinating ladies we have with us today. Dr. Manar, who's the Chief Investment Officer of NEOM and who's hosting us in this beautiful, beautiful pavilion. Thank you so much. Ebru Özdemir, with the chairwoman of the Limak Group, a global construction company headquartered in Turkey, and Elif, who's the head of international client strategy for Bank of America, who's been all over the world. And I'm Thomas Simon-Laritas. Obviously, as one of my friends was saying in the audience, somebody doesn't look right here to talk about women in STEM. I've got an excuse. I'm an engineer by education. I graduated in environmental science, and in my school we were only 90% men and 10% women. And as I was saying to the panel before we started, it was obviously very hard for the ladies, even harder for the men. So the lack of women in STEM is something that I lived personally, obviously not in a hard way like you ladies did. So I would like to start this conversation with very much sharing your own personal experience. And perhaps we can start with you, Dr. Manar, our host. You were raised in a society that was much less open and much less empowering for women than Saudi Arabia is now. So could you tell us about your own experience growing up as a girl, and because you became a doctor, and there must not have been many, many women doctors at that time. Tell us about your own experience and this fight.
Fight, well, that's the beginning of the session, starting with fights. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to NEOM House. It's such a pleasure to have you and to discuss an area that's true and very close to NEOM, specifically diversity and about women. Now, I grew up as a Saudi citizen in a family that was focusing on education, the primary focus. So it started all from the house, is exactly how do you empower and how do you treat with us equal. I never felt at home there was difference between me and between my siblings, brothers. It was always how do you grow, how do you deliver yourself, as well as how do you have a voice and have a discussion. Obviously, as education, I've actually went around the world to get my education. I was blessed between Europe, between the US, to reach where I am. I think so the time that I started feeling I was a female is when I started working in Saudi Arabia. And simply, there was, at that time, I was working for an organization in which we were trying to break all the barriers about male, females. Many times I would be invited to sessions. I would go there, they would think because my name is, goes for males and females. It's such a disappointment when I turn at the door and I'm a female. They just said, oh, we thought you're a he. I said, I'm terribly sorry to disappoint you, but I'm a very short man. That's gonna be really bad.
Were people asking you to bring the coffee?
Not necessarily coffee, but sometimes it was many meetings that you were not invited in included because the regulation at that time was not allowing, men and women to be in the same room. There was segregation. Women had to have their own offices, their own entrance versus men. So you felt sometimes left out, and you needed really to push harder to prove I'm here, I have a voice, and I can be heard in what's being done. And when I've done my career, I've done a shift that many people say, well, that's crazy. Women usually are more sensitive when it comes to risk. They're not comfortable with it. I was a physician, I was an oncologist, I finished my subspecialty. And in one night, I've just said, that's too freaking boring. I cannot continue doing that. And I made a decision to do something different. Maybe many people will think that's crazy. You will not go do a bachelor, you will not do a master, a PhD, do significant publication, and all of a sudden say, well, that's boring, I want to start from scratch. But at that time, I said, what am I going to lose? Let me try and see where that takes me. And that's, again, related to the work that I've done in Saudi Arabia. As a female physician, there was certain limitation. There was opportunities, but there was certain limitation of what you can do and cannot do. When I went to the investment world, the limitation about being a woman still exists. It didn't change, still exists. But I saw, during that time, I saw the shift in which there were some people, and it all comes to leadership. There were some people that was really pushing the boundaries to say, no, you can be, woman, you will have a seat. Many ministers I worked with, and I was blessed to say, we will not conduct the meeting if she's not present in the room. So having those kinds of leaders and role models actually shape and change the way where women can be in the future and what they need to do. There was sensitivity at the time in Saudi that if you're a Westerner, yeah, you can be in meetings, you can go and do whatever you want, but if you're a Saudi, there was a bit of sensitivity. I even offered them to have a blonde wig, if that will help to get me accepted. I'm going to look terrible if I do it, but I even offered that as a joke, because you needed to make a joke out of it to make people feel at ease. And let's remember, we don't need to just, that shift in Saudi Arabia is significant. For a closed society, any man in Saudi Arabia before 2030 vision, before 2016, the women that he used to interact with daily are his mom, his sister, his wife, his aunts. He is not used to dealing with women outside that. So that's the norm that we had. The same applied for females. So that was the norm. So when you suddenly started opening the society, it took time to develop. But frankly honest, look where we are today. Today, women have better opportunity than men in Saudi Arabia. It's 50% of the workforce, but today of the whole population, but in the workforce, we're more than 37%. Are we where we need to be in C-level positions? Not yet. But it is moving. It is moving the needle. It's something that's changing. So, Saudi Arabia did take a major step for women empowerment, and evidence of that, I'm sitting here today with you, leading investment for the largest project in the world.
Very inspiring. Thank you so much. Ebru, you also had a role model when you were young, because you're coming from an engineering family. So you were born and raised in STEM, and as a woman in STEM. Can you tell us about your story?
Of course, but I'd like to first thank to Dr. Manar for hosting us here, because it's great to be between these two powerful women. I mean, that I know for some time now. The first time we met Dr. Manar, she was in the GE, and with Elif years ago when she was going up the ladders of the banking where there's not many women present. And my story is, as you know, in engineering, there's not many women. And even to be an engineer, you have to be good in science and maths. And generally the families are like, okay, if you're good in science and maths, and in the countries like Turkey when there's central exams, families are like, okay, why don't you become a doctor? Then you can take care of us when we're old.
Exactly.
Or a teacher, then you'll have an easier life, then you can get easily married. So nobody wants their daughter to become like a civil engineer, go to site, work in the middle of nowhere. So this is not the way that we are raised. However, in my case, my mother was the only woman engineering student in mechanical engineering at the university, where she met my father. Actually, my father was very practical. So when he went to the class, he met his lifelong partner at the company and his wife from the same class, from the 30 people. You see how practical we are. And then we all become prototypes. We're all engineers, and there's only one person who is sitting here, actually the first diplomat in our company, Ambassador Bosker. So now we are trying to learn diplomacy a little bit. But I've always was going to be an engineer. I mean, even in summer, now I know my father was doing on purpose, but even when we were going to the summer holidays, we were stopping in our construction site. We eat the most delicious food, because the most delicious food exists in the construction sites. And then we go around, we see how, the wonderful structures that we build. And then, of course, we all become engineers afterwards. So coming from a family of prototypes who are all engineers, my uncles, my father's partner, his sons, my brother, I never felt like I'm alone. But when I went to the university, we were only 5 out of 50. And at the workforce, especially in civil engineering, you don't see many women. And then I realized that there's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And then we started to encourage more women in STEM with our first Turkish Women Engineers project. And then now we are taking it to global engineers project, girls project.
Well, what seems to be common between your two stories is that you had families who encouraged you to make it as a woman and to follow your dreams and to be in science and not just become a teacher and get married. Elif, what's your own personal experience? Because you're coming originally from Turkey, but you've lived and traveled all around the world. What was this experience of growing up as a successful woman? Does it come also from the background? Was it through the education process? And what was your experience in the banking sector?
Thank you, Thomas. It's wonderful to be in Davos at the NEOM House talking about women. I mean, just the reality of that is...
Imagine that 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Imagine this panel 10 years ago in a pavilion hosted by Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Like Dr. Manar was the same 10 years ago. She never changed. She's only getting younger.
So for me, I was born in Istanbul, Turkey. And what's interesting is, as Turks, we are between Europe and Asia. We are between modernity and traditionalism. It's there are a lot of complications, and of course, it's of course also a neighborhood with a lot of conflicts. Very early on, I realized that I was very lucky. I was very lucky to be healthy. I was very lucky to be born to a family that could send me to school, to a family like Ebru and Manar who valued education. So, Thomas, my entire life has been trying to prove that I'm worth it, that I deserve it, because so many people in this world do not have it. I could have easily been born as a child of a refugee who doesn't have access to education. So that recognition very early on that this is luck, the fact that I have what I have, that I was able to go to schools, that I have a mind, that I have a health, created this consciousness in me that I have to do something to continue to deserve it, keep it, give it back. So for me, everything else is a detail. Yes, I'm a woman. Yes, I'm from a particular religion. These are details. The important thing is I'm a lucky human being who had an opportunity in this life and who's willing to, has to give back. Because God forbid, maybe if I don't do something about it, I can lose it. Right?
Yes, but you worked hard. I mean, you are missing one point.
Yes, but it's that sense. And when you have that sense, you realize that concept of being a victim is like the dumbest thing in the world. I will never be a victim. There is no such thing. I will never be sorry for myself, and I will never resent the fact that I'm not given this hand or that hand, because this is life. So I have to deal the hand that I'm given, and I have to make sure that I do something with it. So, of course, it's, clearly the female identity probably adds something to it, because as a woman, because you're a minority, there is a struggle component to it. But I think most and above everything, it's that gratitude. And when I look around now and I look at all of these problems that are being created, I wonder, what are people thinking? The fact that we're thinking about this difference and that diversion, etc., whereas what we have all in common is that we're just damn lucky. So that's my story.
Wow, that is so inspiring. That is so inspiring. Remembering that we are, to a very large extent, the results of the society and the family in which we were born, and that we can make a difference. But at the end of the day, it's about the luck of being born in that family, in that country, to have had enough food to have a breakfast, and the chance to have parents who allowed us to go to school.
But I don't completely disagree, but I disagree, because there are many people that I know has similar lives like Elif, but they're not in that position.
Absolutely.
So what made the difference in your opinion?
She worked hard. She worked crazy. I mean, I have known her for many years, and she devoted her life, and she has done a lot of things in her life.
It's the drive. You want to make a difference. Not everyone have the same ambitions, and that's okay. Not every people want to say, I want to reach to the top, I want to do it. Some people will be born with the same family and just say, I want to have a simple life. I just want to get married and have kids. Some others are not. But again, when you have an ambition, you have a drive, you want to reach where you need to be. What is missing is we need to have the right infrastructure, the right mindset to enable us to do so. Because today we keep saying that women have equal opportunities, but the reality, frankly honest, no. Today when you go into meetings, you have 50 men in a meeting, you walk into the first as the only woman. A lot of jokes happen, and when they look at you, they said, oh, sorry. Well, you shouldn't be sorry for me. You should be sorry for saying it, regardless. My gender have nothing to do with it, but that is the struggle that sometimes we have, that some women have the ambition they want to reach, but do we have all the different enablers to help us reach the full potential?
I want to, if I can, Thomas, add to that. And I want to add to something Manar said earlier on, which is she said that she realized she was a woman when she entered the workforce, right? I relate to that. Because again, I believe in work, merit. If you work hard, if you're ambitious, you get it. But as I became more senior in my professional life, then these nuances of being a part of a minority, being the fact that you're the only one, those things come into play. And in the beginning, I didn't want to believe them because I'm such a firm supporter of merit. I was like, no, this has nothing to do with this or that. I mean, you just have to work hard. But then, of course, you live and learn, and you realize that there is a concept of a majority, and there is a concept of minority. And it's very important to be representative, and we are far from being representative. I think this is something that, of course, that we're dealing with.
So basically, being lucky and having a drive, hardworking, and making the effort and the purpose to achieve that. Now, the three of you are extraordinarily successful women. Now, my question to the three of you is, what are you doing to inspire and enable other women to walk in your footsteps? Dr. Manar.
Well, just to make sure that support creating an infrastructure and a foundation in the organizations or wherever you can to say that you have equal opportunity. For me, I'm not about diversity only. Diversity comes across the board. It's not only gender, but simply it's an equality that I'm trying to drive for. You have equal opportunities regardless, no bias in the job, in the promotion, in the way that they hear you. Equal voice, this is very important. I'm a big supporter of mentorship that have helped me significantly in my career. And
did you have any female mentor in your career?
No, I had male mentors, but they were the greatest. They were the greatest, actually, because I was also doing reverse mentoring for them to see how do we see things from our perspective. Just imagine, for men, imagine walking into a room that there is 50 women and you're the only man. How would you feel? We face that daily. Exactly, but we face that daily. We face that daily. We go.
I relate. I'm the only man on the panel. I feel extremely intimidated.
So these are just some of the very simple things. A lot of things when people just ask you, yeah, but hiring a woman tomorrow, you're going to get married, you're going to get pregnant, you're making judgments and conceiving things in your mind that it's not going to be real. I might work even much more harder. So why is it always, well, I don't want to invest in women, I don't want to do it. So today I'm trying to be that voice to try to, speak about mentorship, it's important. What are the current systems? Really being a voice to say equality, equality and equality, that's what we need. I don't need a preferential treatment. I'm capable of delivering what I want. I just want equality. However, one of the things that really scares me personally about the generation to come is the impact of social media. So today, the whole new generation is focused on AI. This Generation Z, they don't read books. They're on TikTok. They're on Snapchat 24/7. If you stop TikTok or Snapchat for a day, they're going to go ballistic. If there is no internet connection in the house for a couple of hours, this is the only time that they have a seat with you on the table. And the current role models that we have through social media app are not the right role models that we need our new generation to look at. They're great at what they do, but they're not really the role model if you want to develop a career, if you do want to develop a career aspiration that you want to reach there. That is short term. That's one of the things that scares me, and that's why I would go back to the traditional way of just find a mentor. Find a goal, a common purpose that you want to do. Find a mentor that will help you, regardless of their gender. I had male mentors. I was doing reverse mentoring to them. I was telling them, when you guys say jokes in the room and you just say, sorry, Manar, how does that make me feel? Just give them that. Putting them into a room, just to walk into a room with 50 females. How do you feel about that? It's only when you start doing that that men will change, and specifically leaders. When they change, they will change the current policies, the current system, the current practices to be able to drive a more equitable workforce as well as an environment that will host everyone.
Ebru.
So what do we do? So when I started working, I realized that there's not enough women engineers around. We said, okay, why don't we have a project called Turkish Women Engineers, where we took it to global now. And by the way, we have been doing this for the past 10 years. And we are fighting with the prejudice approach, saying that women cannot be good engineers. They're better to be doctors. So to do this, we have to encourage women. And we have to show them that they can be successful engineers. For this task, we use mentors who are successful because women or people, humans, can become what they see. So we have to show them that, look, there's Dr. Manar. She's great. She's leading the NEOM. She's a chief investment officer. So you can be a Dr. Manar. You can be Elif. So this is the first thing we are doing. We are giving scholarships to the women engineering students. But we realize that this is not the problem of Turkey. The problem exists everywhere. So we took this project to Kosovo, Macedonia, because we exist there. And then we went to Saudi Arabia. And we signed a memorandum of understanding. And we started the project in Princess Noura University. And we realized that this is the biggest female university on earth. And unbelievable intelligent girls who are becoming engineers. So we took them. And then now we are going to Spain, we are going to Ivory Coast, we are going to Mozambique, because the issue is the same. The second thing is what we are trying to do is to create a sisterhood. Why there is only one woman out of 50? Because women are fighting for this one position and they're killing each other. If we had 5 positions, and if they know that there are 5 positions, then they would support each other. I mean, I have been working in this male-denominated businesses, construction, energy, cement, and I realized that you're the only one here, but all the men are supporting each other in business. They enjoy each other, they hold their hands, they're taking them to the C levels, to the top levels. So this is what we also want in this project. We want to create a sisterhood, not among the Turkish engineering girls, but around the world, so that women support each other. They're not supporting for this one position, but they want to have 5 positions. So this is the reason why we are creating the sisterhood, why we're encouraging and showing them their role models. We give them mentors. If they don't speak English, we put them into online English classes. We have a digitalization and software and skills education. Why? Because all of us went to university. In university, you are not equipped with the talents that you need in the workforce. Remember the first day you were at work, I was like a fish in the bowl. I mean, so many things are happening, but the things that I learned in university is not enough to cope with these. I mean, you have to be resilient. You have to wake up every morning, go and fight, anger management, try. I have to tell that, this is what I'm trying to work hard. I mean, still, it's been 30 years, but we are dealing with that. Anyway, so, we have to collaborate. And I'm glad that, I'm in this panel, because all of us help each other. I mean, Elif was on the way telling me, look, there are many developments. It's not about work. We are trying to create an ecosystem. It's the same thing. I'm with Dr. Manar. Whenever I call these women, we are like, okay, let's do this panel. So I love that motivation.
What have been the feedback from these young ladies, engineers that you've been supporting, not just in Turkey, but in other countries? When they come back to you after a few years, talking about this mentorship, talking about this sisterhood, could you tell us some of the feedback you heard, some of the stories?
They're very happy. Like one of the stories I have is we also support women without parents. So one of them was under Turkish government protection, and she never had a home. So when she graduated, she started to work in an electricity company. She sent me a letter saying that, it's the first time I have a home, and it's the first time I have my sister living at home with me. So they're actually creating a life. And some of them are coming back to encourage other women as mentors. Some people, for some people, you need to maybe touch a little. Some people, you need to touch a little bit more. But what I realize is they come without no self-confidence, but when they graduate and when they start to work, they have a lot of confidence, and they also come back and help the other girls. Also, we had one disabled woman engineer who was in our program. When she came, she was not speaking to anyone at all. But after 4 years, when I started to talk to her, she told me she has already 3 offers, and she's thinking of which one to choose. So it's very interesting. I mean, you see in that journey, I call this a journey, that we share along the way. And you realize that with a little bit of support, they are booming. I mean, I think what we are missing as women is the self-confidence. Self-confidence, even if we know that we can do it, we don't raise our hands.
I don't believe that any of you are missing self-confidence. Are we talking about something else? Elif, are you missing self-confidence?
Thankfully, no. But I want to add on Ebru's comment of sisterhood. I'm a huge, firm believer of the adage that there is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. I'm a total believer in this because it's very important that women help other women, and it's not for granted. So for me, yes, I am biased. I would prefer the woman because I think that it's very important that a woman helps other women. And of course, in my workplace, I'm lucky that I work for a company, Bank of America, that has genuine values, right? Genuine principles around equity, inclusion, and just principles about life. And it's a large community. But again, as years passed in my career, I realized if I don't do something about it, if I don't sort of create the further ripple, I'm not going to make a change. So it's very much around coming out of your way and really pulling other women up, right? I think that's very important, and I think that's something all women should do, which makes a difference.
I will add to that. Again, I think so, yes, pulling other women, but playing a major role in changing policies, procedure, and everything. Let's remember, everything was written by men. They looked at it from their own perspective. Actually having a voice to actually go see, does this thing work? Is it the right thing to put in place? Is it supporting women, example, if they want to progress their career, if they want to have families, what's the right thing? I think so that's another area that we need to do, not only just supporting, but how can we have a higher voice when it comes to the policies, saying, well, let's go edit them. Let's see, is that the right thing or no?
It's a question of policies, but it's also a question of culture. I mean, I have a friend who's working in a financial consulting firm, a very large American one, that is very alpha male driven. And she's one of the rare female partners. And she's complaining to the rest of the partnership and saying, well, you're doing nothing on diversity. And they all say, all this old white male are saying, well, no, we can, it's hard in our job, we cannot hire women. And then she tells them, well, look at your competitors. They manage to hire women and we don't. Why is that so? And look at myself. In my office, actually, I don't manage to hire men. All the good people I hire, they are women. And I think that's maybe it's because I have a bit of a bias. I, as a woman, prefer to hire women. Don't you think that you as men might have also a little bias?
It is. Unconscious bias. Unconscious bias. It's been known across organizations, name it, across the board, financial, non-financial, global, local. It's an unconscious bias. They just feel comfortable, and it starts from writing the job description. If you reach into a point that when you write a job and start profiling people, remove the name, remove the picture, and the gender. Just evaluate based on competencies. That's when you start doing that. That's when you start saying, I'm removing my bias.
This is what they did with orchestras. They realized that in classical orchestras, most of the musicians that they were hiring were men. And so they decided to actually request the candidates to play behind curtains. The moment they did that, they hired more women than men. It was just unbelievable.
It is called blind recruitment, I think, yes.
Exactly. So in Bank of America, what is the culture in regards to diversity? Not what is written on the website, but what you're living through.
Look, what I'm living through is we are a company that believes in representation, right? We are a large company. We serve a lot of people, a lot of communities, a lot of countries. So we would like to represent our clients. And our clients are diverse. So if you actually go back to the principles of business, you would like to mirror your clients, right? Because you can offer better service. So there are actually non-philosophical aspects to this that end in the same place, which is life has to be representative. Workforce, any group of people that is large enough has to be representative of the community of the world. So that's what I'm living. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. The world is 50% female.
That much?
So this is an untapped capital. I mean, why do you want to have this 50% represented, where they can bring the talents? Nobody's, I mean, it has to be a win-win situation. You cannot hire a woman for just to, be, or to have a woman on your board or on your organization. They have to bring some benefits to the table, some of their talents to the table, right? So this is actually what we call the untapped human capital. So much are brought by women onto the table. The only thing is we have to admit that. And I think then our lives would be easier.
Yeah. So I'd like to give the floor to the audience. So if you have some questions, please prepare them, introduce yourself and ask the question in a very short way. I would just like to ask one last question to Elif. We have seen a massive backlash over the last few years in the United States against ESG, against diversity and inclusion. What do you think is happening and how do you feel it has impacted the financial community in the United States?
So I see a lot of these moves as swings of the pendulum. Sometimes over a number of years they go one way or the other. I think for companies like ours, we are service companies, we are companies of clients. At the end of the day, we are going to serve our clients, our customers, our communities, which comes back to representation. So for us, it's not really about politics. It's about doing the best that we can do to our clients, which I believe, Thomas, is going to be the case for a lot of the major companies. It's going to be in terms of who's your customer.
Great. Thank you so much. Questions from the audience? Only men? Okay, let's start.
Thank you very much. My name is Sean from Limak Holdings. I was in Saudi. Want to have a question related with this NEOM city. How do you say this future? Is this another city of Shenzhen, or it's a city beyond, the most fascinated innovation city with a lot of sustainability ideas, with the best talents of the world? Or it's very rooted in Saudi Arabic with its, existing ecosystem? I would like to listen to your input on it to imagine it. Thanks.
So I'll give you the quick answer for that. NEOM was an initiative, everyone around the world has been speaking about problems. We're speaking about carbon dioxide emission rate increasing. We're speaking about we consume food faster than the time it takes us to grow it. We're speaking about water shortage and everything. We've been explicit speaking about problem, but no one entity or country around the world have put a solution. And that's where Saudi Arabia came and said, we're pledging that. We're going to put a solution in place over here and start creating what does the future look like? What does the future look like across the board? And we said we're going to start from a blank slate, a green field, to be able to test, validate, and export these ideas globally, just to make sure to protect humanity. So the whole vision of that is city of the future, built on sustainable practices. Even the sectors, the economic sectors that we've created are not the traditional ones that you see. So we didn't do an oil and gas sector, though that Saudi Arabia is the global capital of energy. We said, oil and gas is not going to be part of what we see the future. It's going to be something different. The kind of sectors we focused on are something focused primarily on what the future is going to be. But a lot of the sectors and the things we're doing are primarily focusing on creating the right social infrastructure, focusing on the human. How do we improve the quality of life? How do we bring time back to people again and making it happen? Saudi Arabia is taking the lead in the beginning to say that we're going to be doing it, but equally we're looking for partners who share the same vision as well as the ambition and goal to actually create a more sustainable future for all of us. Because what is being done in NEOM can be packaged and exported globally.
Okay, microphone over there. I'll try to do men, women, a bit of gender equality. I'll give you the microphone after, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. Orisa Lutsevich. I am the head of Ukraine Forum in London-based Chatham House. Pleasure to see you, especially Hebrew and new speakers. I come from Ukraine, and there is a lot of destruction. And there is a big war raging now, like the biggest war we've ever seen since the Second World War in Europe. And there will be a lot of reconstruction needs. And I wonder whether there is this female energy that will do it differently, or perhaps, we were talking about also big destruction in Syria, there's big destruction in Ukraine. Are you thinking about it? Do you think there is some specific opportunity around that? Because that needs to marry, in a way, this women ingenuity post-conflict, where communities will be so scarred, and I think the sensitivity of women engineers or even planners or urban planners, how do we make all of this more human and better after these horrible wars? Thank you.
Ebru, you've been very much involved with Syrian refugees in Turkey and in supporting women refugees. What is your take on that?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, even at the AI age, we need more engineers. And post-war in Syria reconstruction, Ukraine reconstruction, we definitely need more engineers. And this is the reason we need to have more women choosing STEM fields. And this is not only coming from the university levels. We go back even to the secondary school, high schools. We want these women to go from that angle. So this means we have to educate the families, the teachers and everybody. So the whole ecosystem should not be prejudiced here. And we have to be able to use all the human capital. We cannot say men or women. We need everybody on board after the post-wars. And not only the engineers, we need like chemists, we need biologists, we need all kinds of workforce to be able to work together and sort out these complex problems together. Because the problems became so complex and the projects became so big, only multidisciplinary approaches are, could save the world. And actually this is one of the topics that the World Economic Forum, collaboration in the intelligence age.
I want to add a few things. My short answer to your question is yes. I think clearly in Syria, a bit more visible than Ukraine, because with Ukraine we don't have a resolution yet, there is an opportunity for rebuild, right? Reconstruction. And I do think that women have a slightly different approach than men. And that approach is a little bit more conciliatory, a little bit more teamwork, a little bit more maybe pragmatic, right? I think we all know it. Each gender has something different to contribute. I was listening to Madame von der Leyen this morning at her speech, and what resonated with me was that energy, right? Was that desire to contribute. So I am hopeful that certainly in Ukraine, hopefully in the foreseeable future, there will be another reconstruction, and it will be much more male and female, and with the practicality that brings. And thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm sure it hasn't been easy for you the last 3 years.
I just want to add small things to that. This morning we were in our engineering construction governor meetings. And then it was the first time we have 3 women on board in that meeting.
How many people are in the room?
Maybe 25, but generally I was the only one. I was the only one, but thanks to Dr. Manar came, and also Deborah, who was the CEO of the Canadian airports. She came in. And then some of the men after the meeting came to me and said, wow, it's the first time this governor meetings has positive vibes. Everybody seems happier. Normally this is like the most depressed, the satisfaction rate went down to 0.5%. And they're like, whoa, something is different this meeting. And then, we brought these positive vibes, more positivity. So I think this resonates.
Well, we have in Davos this year Professor Yunus, who came back as Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Now, as you might remember, Professor Yunus got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for the work he did with the Grameen Bank, microcredits. And you might not know that when he tried and tested the idea of microcredit, he realized that it was only working when he was lending money to women. When he was lending money to men, they were spending the money on alcohol and girls. And the women were spending the money on the house and the kids' education. And so the Grameen Bank developed a system where 98% of the loans were given to women, not for a dogmatic reason, for a very practical reason, because when they were giving loans to men, the loans were not being reimbursed. When
We
they were-
supported the Turkish microcredit, and our NPL rate was 0, because it was only we lended to women.
Exactly. So in a way, I think I like very much what Elif was saying, is that there is also some difference between men and women. It's not just having diversity, it's also tapping into another dimension of the human brain, the human heart, the human society, and bringing that. And when we are in an environment where it's men-dominated, we are not using that potential in the way it could be done. And sometimes to succeed, you need actually much more women than men. And I think the world would be a very different place if, imagine a society where it would be the exact opposite, as you were saying, where it would be men who would be struggling now to get into some C-suite position, where the governors' meeting of the construction at the World Economic Forum, there would be 25 women and 3 men. And imagine how the streets on the promenade would be different. So on this thought, I would like to thank the 3 extraordinary, inspiring women on this panel, Elif, Ebru, and Dr. Manar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for moderating.
And a big thank you to NEOM for welcoming us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.